Leon Edwards made a comment that he is ready to challenge for the middleweight belts. That would be 175 pounds. He's the current welterweight champion, 170 pounds. And even if I'm being redundant, right, let's make sure that we get those numbers clear. And generally, this would annoy me. And it would annoy me for two reasons. One, the person making the claim is sidestepping somebody. Like that is first and foremost, when we hear about guys wanting to leave the division, it will at least have the appearance that they are sidestepping somebody. And I can't put that on Leon. As a matter of fact, he's already got a fight signed. He is taking on the somebody. Prior to this, he's taken on all the other somebodies. So if he wanted to move to middleweight, I would at least know in my own heart that it's sincere. Now, the second reason something like this would annoy me is because the guy doesn't understand that we only pretend to move them for competitive reasons. We only pretend that they've cleaned out a division for competitive reasons. We have to move them. We actually move them for business reasons. Because a fight of you versus, in this case, the middleweight champion would be so massive, we've got to find a justification to do it. And it would annoy me when a fighter doesn't know that. Now, fighters very seldomly know it, but it still annoys me. If you're the top draw and you're making the most money and you've got the very rare clause in a contract known as participation on a pay-per-view, you're getting a piece of a company that you never bought into. I feel it incumbent upon you to understand what it is we're doing here. But I can't pin that on Leon either. I can't pin it on him because in this same paragraph, a different sentence, Leon states that he would take on Islam. If Islam wanted to come up to 170, like Leon would understand what that's about because he would like to do it. He would understand not cutting the weight. He would understand the opportunity of champ. He would understand the parity and the nuances that come with it. And to demonstrate that he understands it, he's willing to do it for somebody else. There's just nowhere for me to be mad at Leon here. And how did Leon turn out to be such a good guy? By the way, I've been waiting for him to turn out to be a scumbag, and it has just never happened. And then when you find out about Leon's backstory, right? Father dies when he's a kid. He's got a brother, he's got a mom, he comes up from nothing all the way to world. I mean, when you find out about his backstory, it just lends more times than not to a guy growing up and not being such a wonderful guy. And everything I learn about Leon, this dude's solid. And he's polite. He's really good at what he does. And it turns out he's a competitor. You're not a true competitor if it only goes one way. You're not a true one. And most competitors are. There's very few true competitors. Where it goes both ways is when you want an opportunity to move up, to strengthen your mantle, but you also will extend an opportunity that you have to give. You want somebody else to give you one, but you're willing to give yours. And that's what he's demonstrating by being willing to take on Islam. And I also find it important when Leon is laying his case out to move to middleweight. I find it very important that he address Islam. Because, as I stated, generally when a guy leaves a weight class, there will at least be the perception that it's because he's trying to avoid a certain fight. And in Leon's case, who's gone through the division, no question about it. And you got new and you got these up-and-comers. No question about that either. But if he was to leave and go to middleweight, you're still going to have to talk about, yeah, he's leaving because Islam's coming up. And now you got the perception issue. And I just feel like Leon is covering all of his bases. I am going to fight Blal. I want to fight at middleweight, and I'm not going to call a guy out because I don't care about the guy. I want the achievement of the belt. Oh, by the way, I got a belt that somebody else would like to get. His name's Islam, and I'm willing to do that match too. I just feel like Leon covered everything. So if you're a guy like me, if you're sitting over here and you're trying to point out the weaknesses and the flaws within his statement and where the cowardice lies, Leon didn't really give me much room. I feel like, once again, he's representing himself and his division very well. And you want to know something else when we're talking about Leon? I understand he's got this big challenge of Blal. A lot of times, like if Blal was to beat Leon, you have a massive upset, right? And a lot of times if you're in that position, you halt everything and you run it back, as they say. Actually, it says Robbie Lawler said, and then you all copied. But either way, I don't know that I would predict for that to be an option. If Blal was to get over on Leon, I don't know that I'm willing to predict for you doing an immediate rematch would be an option, since this is not their first meeting, it's actually their second meeting. But it's because of that I'm forced to look beyond this fight. I'm forced to look to say who is next, or who is perceived to be next. Because Ian Garry has put himself in a very good position where we know where Gary's headed. Now, there's a number of speed bumps that can get in the way, but he's headed to the top. And you can't say that for everybody. When Matt Brown got on his run, it wasn't clear that he was going to go all the way to a title opportunity. When Damian Maia got on his run, it wasn't clear that he was going to be able to return to a title opportunity. Right? I'm just sharing my point. John Fitch's story, which he's told so many times. But they're not wrong to tell the story that way. It is largely what happened. But it doesn't appear that way with Garry. In fact, it appears the opposite. That Garry, with the right interview, of which he has not done, could put himself in a title fight right now. He has the best record. And before you tell me Rakhmonov is the best record, if you also factor in age, Garry is the most impressive one that bounces off a page, right? You get a group of promoters together and they're gonna divvy up teams just like you did at kickball on recess when you were a little kid. Gary's going in the first round. Rakhmonov's going in the second round. Whether you like that or not, if you are just going off the numbers that are popping off the page and you're a promoter and you're looking for shelf life, you're grabbing Garry first. And the reason I tell it that way is Garry didn't do that type of interview, and he did not position himself to walk right into a title fight. As a matter of fact, if anything, he positioned himself to go into a number one contenders fight against Rakhmonov, which I don't think they're going to do because it would eliminate. And then you have Rakhmonov. Rakhmonov is flat amazing. If you didn't follow the sport, and I told you about this guy named Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I told you what he has done, you're going to think I'm exaggerating. Shavkat Rakhmonov having 16 fights, finishing 8 by submission and 8 by knockout, but finishing absolutely everybody, is a story of folklore. These are the same made-up stories that they tell us about Bruce Lee back in the day. Or they tell us about Danny Hodge back before there was cameras or there's any living witnesses to actually verify. They're folklore. Except it's real and it's happening right in front of us. That's how good Rakhmonov is. But he is not, particularly because we are armed with the fact that there's an injury, and we are armed with the fact that he's been called out by 2 different people. I mean, Garry called him out whether he meant to do it or not, and Jack Maddalena called him out, and in no uncertain terms. It's just difficult historically to find a guy that's in that kind of situation who's responding to the Garys and the Jack Dale-Lemas. It's very hard when you're playing down here for somebody to elevate you and pull you up there. So I'm just suggesting for you, if it's not Garry, if it's not Rakhmonov, who do you think is next? Who do you think Leon should fight next? Who are you clamoring to see him fight next? How are you going to justify giving it to anybody but Rakhmonov and Garry when they're the 2 youngest guys with the 2 absolute best records? How? And you find yourself stuck. And unless you can get those 2 guys busy with something else, whether it's each other or something else, they're going to be available after the fight with Blahal and Leon gets done. And the same thing goes for Muhammad. If he is to win here, I don't predict that he goes against Leon next. If Leon's to win here, right, it's one of these things where they're both going to move on. I don't know who's next. I don't even know who should be next. I'm coming to you guys to try to find out, because if you don't give me an answer, and I've already admitted that I don't have one, then we're forced to default to the only person that does have an answer, which is Leon. And Leon has 2 ideas. Send me up, and I don't care against 2. We'll do it for the sake of the hardware. Or bring me Islam and let's get this piece of business finished. And quite frankly, I like that idea.